Hi, welcome to this video on solving inequalities. This is going to be on solving two-step inequalities, but not just any two-step inequalities, the tough ones. So as I go through this, they're called two-step inequalities because the variable is going through a two-step process. If I was going to substitute in the value for a variable, I would multiply it here by 9/2, and then after I got that, I would take that value away from -10. And so that's why it's called two-step, because there's two things you're going to do. But that doesn't mean in this solving process is two steps, because it's going to be more than that. So we're going to keep track of the steps that we do to solve this. And it's going to be daunting, but we'll help you be all the better for it. Okay, here we go. So how do I solve this inequality? Well, step one is I'm going to solve it like an equation. And that might be easy enough if the inequality looked like this. If I had to solve 3x plus 2 is less than 5, that'd be a pretty easy one to solve. But that's not what I have here. I have one that's going to has a lot of places for us to make mistakes. Because even when we were solving equations, we had a tough time with the ones where we had to subtract the variable. So because of that, when I have this subtraction here and I'm subtracting the variable, I find that it's easier if I do keep, change, change, and change that subtract to add and change the coefficient of the x to the opposite. And then that will make it a little easier for me to solve, because now I can reorder it if I want. Because I don't know about you, but it makes it easier for me when the variable term's first. And so once I have addition, I can use the commutative property and reorder these things. And now I couldn't change the order the way it was before because I was subtracting. So if I change it to addition, though, I can reorder it, and now it looks a little bit easier to solve. So let me begin solving that. So the first step, because I'm adding a -10, I subtracted a -10 from both sides. Or I could have just added 10 to both sides, because that's the same thing as subtracting a -10. Either way, 80 minus -10 is 90, just like if I would have added 10, I would have got 90. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to divide by the coefficient, or I could multiply by the reciprocal. I'm just going to divide by the coefficient because that's what I see most of my students doing. So they divide by 9/2 and divide by -9/2. Now I have to be really careful here, because I need to remember that earlier we learned when we divide by a negative, that causes the inequality symbol to flip. So dividing by a negative, because it's the opposite, because I'm dividing by an opposite, it's going to make the opposite happen with the inequality. So now it's greater than. What was less than is now greater than. So now I have x is greater than, and then whatever this is. So I have x is greater than -20. So I've solved it like an equation. And the next thing I have to do is I now need to think about this and say, okay, did I solve the equation correctly? So now I'm going to check the equation. So I'd recommend you to pause this video in a moment so that you can copy down what I have so far. So pause now. Okay, so now that you've gotten back to where you were, I can see that when I did the RSS, I actually wrote it as an equation and not an inequality, because my solution is to make the two sides equal. So I want to make sure that works. And it does. So I evaluated both sides. So now I know that I have the correct number. The next thing I have to do is I need to graph the inequality. So I created a number line. And you can pause the video now so that you can make the number line. And now that you're back, so I made the number line and I put the -20 in the center. I used an open circle because it's greater than -20 and not equal to. And then I made my arrow go to the right because greater than is to the right. So what I'm going to do now is check to make sure that works. So it's about to turn off. So what I did was I used 0, and I made sure to put 0 back in the original inequality that we started with. And since 0 is part of my shaded region, and when I put it in for x, it's less than 80, I know that my graphing is correct. So those are all our steps. You might want to pause this and write them down. Thanks for watching.